上当百年，欺世大官.
Today we will tell the story of a foreigner who was cheated by the CCP. Not only was he brainwashed by communism, but wasted his life during the so-called revolution. This is the story of Sidney Rittenberg, an American idealist who spent 30 years in China, but more than half of them in jail. He was first put in jail by the CCP from 1949 to 1955, and again during the Cultural Revolution from 1967 to 1977. He was tortured and mentally abused for years. He was never trusted by the CCP, and when he was not in jail, he lived in a foreign ghetto of Western communists and fellow travelers who were kept away from most Chinese people. Some listeners may think he deserved it. We need to make it clear in advance that we are all entitled to our opinion, but it may not be the official one of QSTG. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, there were Westerners who were resentful of the realities in the Western world and attracted by the illusion fabricated by Marxism. With longing, they joined the Communist Party, went to the Soviet Union or China, and became a fighter in their revolutions. Some of them became big favorites of the CCP, like American journalists Anna Louise Strong and Edgar Snow. Others were once so popular and intimidated by the CCP that they hooked up with Communist Party bigwigs. However, eventually they became prisoners of the CCP. To the Communist parties, they were just useful idiots. Today we'll tell the story of Li Dunbai, also known as Sidney Rittenberg, who was one of them. According to the autobiography of Li Dunbai, we can find hints about how he evolved from the hot-blooded youth to the CCP's ancestry. Sidney Rittenberg, also known as Li Dunbai, was born in 1921 in Charleston, South Carolina, to a middle-class family. His grandfather was a state legislator, and his father was a lawyer, once an acting mayor. His maternal grandfather was Russian and participated in the Russian Revolution. As a 13-year-old boy, he was angered by the injustice black people suffered, and dreamed of living in a place where justice would prevail. Among grandfather's visitors, Sidney was attracted by guests from the American Communist Party. After reading ACP propaganda material, his political views began to lean towards the left. After graduating from high school, Li Dunbai went to the University of North Carolina, where he joined the ACP and participated in some of the party's activities and propaganda work. After the outbreak of World War II, the ACP was strongly against it, considering World War II a war between imperialist countries. However, its stance towards it quickly changed when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941. Later, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, Li Dunbai joined the army and went to Stanford University to learn Chinese. At that time, Edgar Snow's book, Red Star Over China, was published and glorified the CCP and Mao, which had a big influence on many students in the class. Before the Japanese surrendered in 1945, Li Dunbai arrived in Kunming, the capital city of Yunnan Province, China. Li quickly contacted local underground CCP. The local CCP leader recommended Li to go to Yan'an, as Mao just started to learn English and needed a good English teacher. This local CCP leader described him how wonderful Yan'an was, which attracted Li very much. By the way, the Chinese name Li Dunbai was recommended at this time by the owner of a local left-wing bookstore. At that time, Li Dunbai received his discharge orders from the US Army. He decided to continue to serve in the US Army in China. After application, he was transferred to the US Army headquarters in Shanghai. With the help of the CCP, Li Dunbai met Liao Mengxing, who was the secretary of Song Ching-ling. Both Liao and Song were the CCP's underground members. Liao introduced him to Song Ching-ling, the widow of Sun Yat-sen, the first president of the Republic of China. By then, Song had secretly joined the Communist International. 3 months later, with Song's help, Li Dunbai became an inspector at the United Nations Relief Administration, overseeing the distribution of relief supplies. During this period, he also met several senior communist officials, including Wang Zhen, Zhou Enlai, etc., and willingly became a volunteer special agent in the US Army working for the CCP. He handed important information to the CCP, such as America supports the nationalists to destroy the CCP in northeast China. He became a traitor to the US Army, voluntarily worked for the CCP, and was then accepted by Yan'an. Sun Yuanliang, a senior general in the National Army, later believed that it was the latent US Army co-spy Li Dunbai who stole confidential information from the US head of the Military Investigation Department and saved Li Xianliang's troops from being besieged by the National Army. In 1946, being introduced by Zhou Enlai, Li Dunbai left the UN Relief Agency and went to Yan'an. But after arriving in the city of Zhangjiakou, he was left behind by the CCP's local army leader, Nie Rongzhen, who asked Li to help proofread and refine the English for the CCP's propaganda materials, which were used for the American broadcast. Doing so until October 1946, Li finally made the trip and arrived in Yan'an, where he worked for the CCP's Xinhua news agency. Li applied to join the CCP and soon received approval. So he became the first foreign member of the party within the CCP, but kept his American citizenship, unlike a few other foreigners who renounced theirs. Li recalled that before he left for Yan'an in the summer of 1946, he met Wang Guangmei, the CCP leader Shaoqi Liu's wife, a recent graduate of Beijing Furen University, at the office of the Military Investigation Department in Beijing. Back then, Wang was 24 years old and served as the English secretary to Ye Jianying, the CCP's chief representative of the office. Not long after Li's arrival in Yan'an, China's civil war broke out between the National Government Army and the CCP Army, and Wang Guangmei withdrew to Yan'an from the Beijing office. Dr. Ma Hyde, known as Shafiq George Haytham, also an American, and his Chinese wife Sophie, tried to set up Li and Wang. The two met twice and each treated the other to a meal of potted meat, but finally decided it was better just to be friends. Later, Wang Guangmei married Liu Shaoqi. Liu became the national president, the number 2 figure in the CCP. During the Cultural Revolution, Liu was stripped of power and died in an unknown location. Li Dunbai also had connections after having meals together with Wang Guangmei in Yan'an. Even more unthinkable was that in late February 1949, Li received an order from his boss Liao Chengzhi, the president of the Xinhua news agency. The order was signed by Liu Shaoqi, directing Li to go to Beijing. The city had just been occupied by the CCP army. Li was ordered to go on a special mission with Mao's political secretary and Russian translator Shi Zhe. Li Dunbai was so excited that he thought he could take on the historic task of diplomatic communication between the new Chinese Communist regime and the American Empire. Unexpectedly, Li was tricked into entering a village in Dongpaipo, where the CCP's Central Committee was stationed, and was arrested. Several soldiers first stripped him of his clothes, and then asked him to open his mouth for inspection. Li fainted and cried out in fear. What was the situation? Immediately afterwards, he was forced to explain which secret agents he had contacted. After a few weeks of detention and interrogation, Li did not provide anything. The situation was really bad. The room where he was being held was very small, with a dirt bed at the door and only 3 or 4 walking steps of remaining space. The window was sealed with wooden boards, which blocked off any light, and there was only a dim oil lamp lit up at night, not to mention the interrogations, which were always threatening and intimidating. According to Li Dunbai's recollection, he believed that either the party must have made a mistake or they were testing him. He was nervous because almost all of his Chinese friends in the Xinhua news agency had become anxious during the Yan'an rectification movement, and later some of them were trembling with fear. Even if the party were wrong, Li had to comfort himself and could not complain. It was enough that he was already a foreign bootlicker. But endless wavering would never have an end. Li simply fabricated a false surrender, with the intention to pass the CCP's test, but was not successful. While he was extremely nervous, soldiers came and forced Li to swallow some small white pills. Li hallucinated and even choked. Later he learns that the drug was a nerve stimulant to make you nervous and sleep poorly. Many people who have been in today's CCP prisons have been fed similar drugs that destroy your nerves and will. It is important to know that the communists did this even when they took power. By then, little to his knowledge, this was only the beginning of the mental torture. He was later taken to Beijing's No. 2 prison, where he remains for more than 6 years. Li remembered that at the end of 1949, or the spring of 1950, there was a newspaper pasted in the cell with the words, "The People's Republic of China was founded." He felt the ideology he pursued seemed to have been realized. From then on, he began to read books and newspapers again, so that he could forget the pain. During his time in prison, his second wife Wei Lin divorced him as she received little news about him. Li's first wife, Violet, divorced him a long time ago and had an affair, as he was not at home and spent years of incitement outside. Years later, Li learned that he suffered 6 years of imprisonment because he was implicated in the so-called American agent case against Anna Louise Strong, the left-wing journalist and writer, whom the Communist Party of the Soviet Union identified as a Yankee. Under pressure from Stalin, he was imprisoned without question. After Stalin's death, there was a change in the Soviet Party, and the CCP released Li from prison, when it was already April 1955. After being imprisoned for 6 years for no apparent reason, it was natural for Li to seek justice or compensation. However, Li had no complaints against the party. On the contrary, he believed he was a tested, true model Communist Party member, even though his wife left him and his eyesight became poor due to the torture suffered in prison. It didn't matter. It is true that when one is possessed, one becomes a ghost. The communist cult does not care whether you are a Chinese or a foreigner. Brainwashing was a treatment equally applied to everyone. We will continue our story in the next episode, where we will find out what happened after Li was released from prison. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.